Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources in health and finance and career. But more importantly, this show is all about athletes transition out of sports, such a major issue today: mental health, financial literacy, career. And we want to make an impact. We interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their transition out of sport ultimately into successful business and entrepreneurship. So excited today to have former Major League Baseball player Evan Marshall. How you doing, Evan?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So Evan played college baseball at Kansas State, and then I made a list here. Hopefully we'll get them all. But he played Major League Baseball with the Diamondbacks, Mariners, Indians, White Sox, and the last one was the Angels. So he got to experience the flavors of the different cities, right? A lot of different good things going on there, right?
I played in some wonderful places, but they were all very unique as far as the fan base, the culture, the food.
That'd be an interesting podcast to talking to former professional athletes and talk about their favorite cities and their favorite foods and all that kind of stuff. Getting a whole thing there. So, and then once he was done playing, he transitioned out and he's doing business development now in commercial insurance and just really building a network there, and it'll be interesting. We'll talk more about it later. His journey into that, what he's doing, and how he's parlaying his status as a former Major League Baseball player. So, Evan, talk about growing up playing sports. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up just south of San Francisco in Sunnyvale in the Bay Area in California. Honestly, very blessed to have grown up there because East Coast sports comes on at 10 a.m. on the West Coast. So that was great. Sports, and in the Bay Area, you had the Giants and the A's, you had the Raiders and the Niners, the Warriors, the Sharks. So sports is on all year long. And I'm living where there's great weather year round. So my access to getting to go outside and play in leagues and games and stuff was never compromised by the winter. So I played every sport there is. I think it's important to diversify as a kid, just from different, if you want to just be a great athlete, you have to do more than just play football or play basketball or whatever. So I played them all and eventually found my niche in baseball. And once I kind of focused in on that and where that could take me, at the time, I really just cared about getting a scholarship. And so that was my best avenue towards that. And so then I specialized when I got into high school, just in baseball. But leading up to that, I played everything, and I kind of preach that for everybody, that the kids should try to play everything they can, and they'll learn some stuff they like, and they'll learn some stuff they hate, and that'll shape them as they develop. And it definitely shaped me. I mean, I was a good basketball player, volleyball player. I could run and jump, and that's probably what helped me in baseball, was that athleticism in my lower half made me a stronger, more explosive pitcher. So yeah, I had great parents, and they dedicated everything to me and gave me everything that I needed. I was an only child, so I was the center of their world, still am. And I had no shortage of opportunities to get to develop and kind of shine my different abilities.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I think a lot of people do talk about it. I think more today, the younger athletes are typically, zoning in on one sport. I mean, I know I did, my son, he's turning 30. And when he was, first starting out, we did all the sports, soccer, football, baseball, basketball, but it was short lived. It basically became baseball. I mean, baseball was my passion. I love baseball. And so it was a matter of just going through and just the little league and the travel baseball and all that thing. But it just seems like a lot of the focus today is on one sport. And to your point, I think that is a missing link when, people aren't playing all the sports.
Yeah. Baseball is great to me, and it obviously took me a long ways, but it all ultimately comes back to like what you just mentioned about with your son. He got into baseball, but you guys went the travel route. I'm sure you coached at one point, and so it takes a good amount of parent support to even dip your toe in the water on a new sport. And so, yeah, having the backing of great parents that were there to support me. I tried soccer, got hit in the nose with the ball, said soccer's not for me. And so I at least had the option to go try all these things, and it takes a great support network out of your family around you to sort of allow that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Did you dream about being a professional athlete? And was it in baseball?
Yeah, I could see myself throwing passes in the NFL, but not getting blindsided. I pitching was I growing up in the Bay, I was the biggest Barry Bonds fan on the planet. So when I, was 10, 11, 12, those were the home run chases and him record setting. And honestly, my first heartbreak was in '02 when the Giants lost to the Angels in the World Series. I cried my eyes out. Up to that point, I feel like I had never cared about anything as much as I cared about that 6 weeks of the playoffs. You get a taste for competing and winning and seeing your favorite athletes on TV and wanting to be them. I knew I wasn't going to be Barry Bonds, but I thought I might be Brian Wilson. I thought I could go out there and throw hard for a few pitches. And yeah, growing up in the Bay was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you went to school, we talk a lot about just, ultimately we'll talk later about your transition out of baseball, but when you were in college at Kansas State, was there any kind of education set up, and not just like a 1-day workshop, but specifically towards the current athletes and alumni athletes as well, as far as, here's what's going to happen afterwards and kind of preparing people for life after sports?
If it was available to me, I missed that memo, right? Like I was in college, I'm taking economic classes, I'm taking financial classes, I'm taking everything that, I graduated in a business management degree. And beyond that, there was nothing. There was no, let me introduce you to financial literacy and planning for a future, or take time to meet the people around you because one day they might be important for your network. There was none of that. But I will say Kansas State, and this is pre-COVID, Kansas State had a fund that was there that would match your scholarship that you had while you attended for you to come back and finish getting your classes. They were all about their student athletes graduating. And so I didn't see that, at other colleges. I didn't get that talking to other people about their experiences. But Kansas State, you have to tip the cap. They were all about getting their athletes graduated, and maybe that was their avenue to set athletes up for success later in life, having that piece of paper, because you have to have it these days.
Yeah, for sure. And I think schools are, more in tune with it now. I mean, I think there's still a lack of it. And we've talked about going into schools with resource partners into different areas like, health and finance and all that, and trying to develop additional curriculum to partner with the school for not only the current athletes, but the alumni athletes too, because I think they tend to be forgotten. And part of it, I've had these conversations recently, just it might have to do with coaches, like coaches leave or athletic directors leave. So you don't necessarily have that. But I think overall the school should still, focus on how to help their both their current and their alumni athletes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
What from a major league perspective, and I'm sure they do some stuff, but is there, again, aside from maybe like a workshop, do they offer different classes or things like that related to, hey, thank you, and here's and whether it's both major league and minor league for that matter?
Really all I found was Major League Baseball partnered with like University of Phoenix, something like that, where you had access to online education at a discounted rate. And through that, you could find classes on accounting and management, and literacy, and everything, but nothing specific about how to apply it once you get out. Um,
Okay.
so Major League Baseball, the Players Association, they have bigger battles to fight, as far as CBA and revenue and advertising and jersey patches and all the stuff that is above the typical player. The Alumni Association, especially the last 4 or 5 years, has really ramped up efforts about bringing a network of alumni together and finding, once a year they'll set up a networking event where they'll do career building, resume building, where, like I had only ever been a baseball player, right? So
Right.
they connected me with professional services to try to extrapolate data out of my career to put on a resume that would make sense, like being selected as a captain and what that means about my leadership abilities and stuff. And so you kind of have to squint at a lot of stuff from a pro baseball career to look at it like it can apply to a professional resume. But they helped, and they helped me fill in the gaps. And I took that resume, and that's what I was taking to interviews. And yeah, if I didn't have them with the hands-on approach that they had or they have now, my resume would have just been a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah,
Said
that's
I
great
am
that they're.
baseball player.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess one of the big things, with transition too has to do with, I guess, loss of identity. You've been an athlete, or whatever the sport, Major League Baseball player, NFL, or just a college athlete, your whole life you played that sport, and all of a sudden it's done. and like, okay, well, like what's next?
Yeah, the what's next, you never think that you're going to need a what's next. Like I'm a Major League Baseball player. I'm going to be unapologetically rich and just get to play golf and drop my kids off at school. And that happens for 1% of the people that get into Major League
Right.
Baseball. And tip the cap, because that is such a rare thing to accomplish, to take your short part of your life and have it provide for the whole rest of your life. Baseball gave me a great head start. I'd much prefer to pay my bills through a revenue stream than just eating into my nest egg. And that propelled me into getting back into the workforce. And that was kind of flying blind getting into that. So I learned a lot, some bumps and bruises along the way, but the process is better now as far as transitioning athletes. There's a little more help there now than there was previously. But when you get in a room full of people like myself transitioning out of being a Major League Baseball player, the thing I took away from it more than anything was I wasn't the only one struggling. And that actually did my heart and my head a ton of good, just to understand that I wasn't the only one trying to cross this bridge. And so that gave me confidence to keep going, keep trying, because you get told no in an interview and that's it. You think, I'm never going to be able to do this. No one's ever going to hire
Yeah.
me. Let's let's fire up the pitching lessons, a flyer or something, just to generate revenue. I found my way. You have to prioritize what's important to you. I have this lifetime of useless knowledge for pitching, but the only way I could have applied it professionally was to leave my home and go be with the team and travel all year. I spent my 13-year career in professional baseball. I spent that whole time like, man, there's one day when I can sleep in my own bed and put down roots in my own city. That's honestly what I wanted. That's what I was chasing. So I eliminated the options that took me away from home more than I needed to be. I got recruited into this life and insurance by a couple of friends that I just casually met at the golf course that work here at IMA. And they were kind enough to set an interview for me. And fortunately, it wasn't my first interview. It was like my 10th interview. So I'd had a little bit of time to have the bad ones that lead to the good ones. So the
Right.
interviews went well, and I had to do a lot of education. I work in commercial insurance, but I didn't know what a deductible was till I was like 28. So you have to understand the business acumen to be able to talk and not trip over your tongue the whole time and be exposed as a fraud, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to circle back on that as we talk more about your transition out. But kind of getting into one of the things you just touched on a little bit is networking, connecting. And we talked about offline too, but I mean you just brought it up there as far as helping you, knowing people to get you into that, those interviews and all that. So talk about the importance of it, especially while you're still playing your sport.
You know, when I first got up, and it's probably still this way, you're almost taught to put your head down, close your mouth, keep your ears open, and just go do your job, right? Don't worry about anything else because nothing else matters other than getting people out. And I believed in that. I put my head down. I went to work every day. Everything is scheduled for you. So I know at 9 a.m. I got to be here for a lift. I got a nutrition meeting. I got, hit my protein goals, all these little things that you track. But everything's planned for you. So then you get to the part of your life where it's like, my calendar's empty, but I know I've got stuff going on that I need to do. And so then it forces you to take control of your own situation. And yeah, as far as networking goes, early in my career, I really didn't do a great job of it. Like I knew the owner a little, I knew all the coaches in the front office people, the GM, I knew them, but I didn't know them from a professional angle. I wasn't ever like, I might work for these guys upstairs one day. I should be showing my interest now. And that's what I would coach young players in the game to do. Talk to as many people as you can, find out, be genuinely interested in what's going on. And people remember that. I played for 5 organizations and I still have people in the high levels of the front office at all of them that I still talk to. And those were my networking later in my career where I started to understand, and maybe just me being mature and understanding that baseball is finite and there's a life after, and if I can't fully support the rest of my life with what I did in my career, I'm going to need a boss someday. So I started to talk more. I started to talk more to GMs, and honestly, a lot of them are ex-players. They've all been in baseball forever. And I just had one day, I just sort of took a leap and struck up a conversation with somebody in the hallway. And it went really well. It was telling me about you and the things that are interesting to you and after playing and stuff. And so then I got more comfortable having that conversation. I didn't want people to think that I was 1 foot out the door already thinking about what's next for me in life. Like I'd still have to go focus on, throwing a clean eighth inning or something. But I just started to I had more points of contact for important networking opportunities that were maybe going to be available to me one day. You stay in the game long enough, people have either found out that you're a good guy or you're not. You've that much
Right.
exposure of that long. And I came away on the good guy side thankfully. And so that opened up doors for me just to be able to talk to people. I had a reputation of being honest and a warm conversation. So I used that to my advantage and I started to leverage more conversations with more executives and even manufacturers that were touching the baseball state, Mizuno, Rawlings, your executives from those companies, because I could have been a glove salesman. I could have been the
Yeah.
major league rep for somebody at some point, right? So I just wanted to make sure, especially the last couple of years of my career, that I had networked as many opportunities as I can. I wasn't going out into visiting cities and looking up people to go have lunch with and stuff, but
Right.
I just definitely increased my networking ability inside of the baseball space. And then I also met a lot of people I finished my degree while I was playing. And so you end up in meetings and stuff with lots of other players that are going through it, even if the meeting has nothing to do with, like, let's say me and you, but it's educating you about how to use your education benefit. Then you spark up a conversation with the guy next to you about what is it that you're majoring in, what are your goal, what do you want to do with that one day. And I had been through that maybe a little sooner than some of the people that would be in those meetings. And so, like, when I would say, hey, person next to me, what is it that you want to do? And just the, deer in the headlights look. And it's like, I don't know, but I know that I need to do this if I'm going to have any chance of doing that. And so, yeah, I think that's about as accurate way of saying it. People know you need to do it, but you don't know how you're going to apply it, right? Like, it's a pass fail. You have to go get your degree if you're going to have any chance of getting a job or success in the professional world. And so that was an obstacle. I first one in my family to graduate, and I was very proud of that. Now I can apply to anything now, having that piece of paper, and people know that I'm willing to follow through on a task. I mean, it was very difficult to graduate with a college degree, taking classes online right before batting practice, or on the plane or something, right? Like that was a challenge, but it definitely kept me busy, and it was before I had kids, so that made that a little bit easier, a little less distraction. But my wife and I both graduated from Kansas State, and education and having a long-term plan for success is something we'll definitely be passing along to our kids.
That's great. I love that. And then, like, I guess if you were to go back in time on back to your college or even high school days, do you think you like maybe give some advice to some of these young athletes about networking, even starting at that age, and just how that now that you can kind of look back at it, you started doing it like you said later in your major league career, but look back to maybe high school and college and give some advice to for them to what they can do today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think mindset has a lot to do with it. I mean, the cocky and arrogant youth today that they haven't gone through it yet. They're still on this meteoric rise. Baseball's finite. And so that's just the thing is I remember Tony Clark saying something to me one time, and it was every player, you look around, you look at the best, you look at everyone that's come and gone, every player is the next player at some point. No matter how long your career is, every player is the next player. I took that to heart. I understood that this is going to be my kickstart to my second career, whatever it ends up being. Obviously, I'm in insurance now. I know that it's honestly just a great networker. It's a great conversation starter. And it set me and my family up well for our futures. But now that I'm in my second career, I actually get to try to blend my two careers together. And so for the younger crowd, that I only care about throwing hard, lifting, going to Chipotle, lifting again, and then throwing the next day. That's great. You're all in on what you're doing right now, but you're only at the field for 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours, six. Sometimes it gets long, but that's still just part of your day. And so if I could go back and do some things over again, in the minor leagues, in high school, whatever, I would have been trying to, hey, we have to be at the field at 1 today. Are you available for a late breakfast or something like that with various people in that network? And then you use them like career coaches. Like, how did you get to this point in sports? Where did you have to write reports in the basement? Did you just show up and everyone trusted you and you took the reins of this franchise? I learned a lot of valuable stuff about how GMs got to their spots. At the time, there wasn't a lot of ex-players that were becoming GMs. They were all attorneys, they were agents, there was other avenues to get there. And it was all just stuff that I had no idea about because I had no reason to know about it. And so when I started to open up my network and talk to more and more people, you come across people whose parents have owned a construction company for 4 generations. And the day that they're done in baseball, they're going to be a project manager at the company's construction division. And so, some people already have their lives planned out. And then if you're like me, I was kind of just flying blind, especially early in my career and college. There was not a whole lot of advice given or any type of direction. It was just put your head down, do your work, shut your mouth, keep your ears open, come back the next day and do the same thing. So I did that for a long time, but eventually, like I said, I transitioned into more of a social angle where I was going to breakfast with assistant GMs or people from the marketing team or finance team, and I just kind of got to understand the business of sports that way. And I don't know, it was kind of invaluable to hear from these C-suiters, execs, and professional franchises about how they got there and what they see for me. And honestly, you have to be coachable, and that's the thing. The youth, they're so good now, and they're so much stronger and more advanced than like even where I was when I was coming up, that there is nothing else on their radar besides that. And that's good that they're that dedicated, but it isn't good because you have to, like, those types of people are so uncoachable. They're so close-minded and they're going to do their thing their way forever, that they just don't know what they don't know. And so it's kind of a hard thing to do the first time, to reach out to somebody who might control your destiny a little bit and say, would you like to get breakfast this morning? And have that not come across as I'm trying to kiss ass, or, I'm trying to suck up to the front office about, hey, please don't fire me the next time I give up a run. And so I just had to be kind of delicate with how I did that. But I found that my true intentions came through quickly. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm down on my luck right now, but I'll figure it out, trying to convince them not to fire me. It was more like, how did you get here? How did you apply your college degree to helping you get to this time and this place? And did anything, like talking with a GM, did you ever do a deal that you regret? Like, did anything happen where you fumbled a major prospect, and how did you try to leverage that? And how did you keep your job? And so that was fun for me because I had a mind like a GM. I was always considering player movement and player development, and running my own GM desk from my locker in the locker room, which is a distraction. We're control what you can control. But some people have a bigger mind than just what's right in front of them. And now you see like Chris Young, and there's other players, pitchers that just retired and went right into the front office, and now they're GMs and presidents of baseball operations. It's like, that could have been me, but they also made the commitment that they were going to go sit in the basement for a couple of years and write reports on analytics or something, and then wait for their big break. I wanted to be home with my family, so my big break wasn't in that direction.
That makes sense, and there's so much good advice there, and I think being a sponge and just taking it all in and asking questions. I think a lot of people want to help, and I think if you ask for help, they're willing to do it and talk about, what, like you said, what got them to where they are today. And I always tell to these younger, people that just because you're young doesn't mean you might not have some value to somebody who's maybe they're a multimillionaire, CEO of a company, but maybe you could help one of their kids, or maybe they love sports and they're interested in hearing your story. So just be open to helping people, like paying it forward even at a young age, but network, and just, whether it's in high school or college, because you you have all those, your teammates, their parents. I mean, there's just so many people around that can really, make a difference. So let's talk about it. I got my two questions. So I don't know if you got to, if you watched or listened to any of the podcasts, if you had a chance yet. But the first question is 10 words or less, going back in time. What advice would you give to freshman Evan at Kansas State?
Well, I've got funny ones like put down the fork, right? Like I was eating myself into irrelevancy. So I cleaned that up early in my life. But joking aside, 10 words or less. Um, yeah, maybe something along the lines of, this opportunity right now is just a head start for your next opportunity, right? I didn't
Okay.
have eyes past what was happening right in front of me in my playing career. And I didn't understand, like today, I understand that half of the prospects or conversations I have with people, business owners, start because we're talking about baseball, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand that baseball is America's pastime. Everybody has baseball in their life in some capacity. And I could really leverage that, my past and history, into starting conversations. And it ends up talking about their kids and their journey through
Yeah.
baseball and stuff. And so we connect on those things. And kind of the same thing, take an opportunity to become a coach, right? Go
Yeah.
coach some kids and develop a knack for that. And I find that I've been a good coach. I am a good coach because I failed my whole career. I failed upwards essentially. I'd get into a rut, I'd have a problem, and here's how I fixed it. And so I wasn't God-given talent. I really had to work at it. And so I learned a lot of lessons during that time, and you can pass that on really quickly to high school kids that have never had any real formal coaching. And when you make a difference like that, you don't know who that kid's parents are. Right.
Right.
I do it now, and that parent owns a construction company or a concrete business, or they run an IT firm or something. And that starts another conversation because they already trust and believe in you because of the impact you had on their kids.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's switch gears and let's talk a little about alumni engagement. And I'm going to hit two areas with you. One from a college perspective, and the other one from a major league, former major league baseball player. So from a college perspective, when you were at school, were they bringing back alumni athletes, and not just for the golf tournament or the homecoming game, but to mentor and work with the other athletes that were there?
To be honest, not once. When I was at Kansas State, there wasn't a poster child like, somebody that went to the big leagues recently that would come back to talk, right? Kansas State just didn't have that. The program wasn't there yet, and now we're having, Kansas State has had 2 first-round picks, and now there is let's say I'll throw my hat in that ring that people that have gone and done it. When we come back to Manhattan, we do get involved. We talk about baseball. We talk about our journey through the draft and how to give back. But when I was there was nothing. There was no. You heard stories of stuff from coaches that had coached other players and things that worked for them and things that didn't. But yeah, at Kansas State at the time, there really wasn't anything. But I will give them credit. The alumni group is back more and more often now. And the head coach of Kansas State, Pete Hughes, he wasn't there when I was there, but he is very warm and very generous with the alumni group, especially if you have some relevancy. And so I come and hang around the team from time to time, and I try to be that resource, right? Because
Right.
I went through the draft, I've been designated, I've been optioned, I've been purchased, I've been cut every which way you can. So as far as the resiliency and preparing them for what's ahead, like it's a long, bumpy road,
Yeah.
and you can easily lose sight of what you're doing on the field if you're worried about too many things outside of that. Um, so I think it's important to give them direction, get a good financial planner, talk to people, create relationships with people, and use them as life coaches. I could have used that, right? Like I got money and I spent it all real quick, and that was
Right.
terrible. And so then I learned a very painful life lesson that I probably could have learned before. And then it just took that kind of a bump in the road to straighten me out and sort of change my mindset. And connected me to financial planning and financial literacy and all the things that I really didn't have because I just had never been exposed to it. I had never actually
Right.
had money in my own pocket, right? I could tell you how to spend your money all day long, but I didn't have a good plan as far as protecting my future.
What about alumni engagement with Major League Baseball? Like, I mean, do the players get back together in a community type setting, both from a standpoint of baseball and then maybe from a standpoint broader of other athletes from different sports?
I've never had interaction with other athletes from other sports other than when people show up for first pitches and you get to meet them for a second. And, it's the center for the Bulls or whatever. Um, yeah, I wish there was more of that. More alumni centered events and stuff with pro ball, but um, I honestly haven't been asked to come back too much of anything. They have the camps and spring training where famous people from every team show up, and then all the fans get to pay, fantasy camp. So sometimes there's some of those types of deals where you get to interact with a few people from back in the day. Um, the Alumni Association specifically has upped their interest in those types of networking and building events. Really, in just the last 3 or 4 years, the Career Development Summit has become a very hot ticket for all Major League Baseball alumni. And when I went, I mean, I have about 6 years of total service time, and I probably had the most in that room of people that were there, all the way down to people with one day, right? One day of Major League service, and this guy was in here using these resources about how he was going to develop professionally and stuff. So I think the Alumni Association has made leaps and bounds forward in that development of that program. So like I said, it's a hot ticket. There's 400 people, with 100 of them being ex-players that have made the transition already, that are there to share stories and give advice,
Right.
and 300 people that are there to find out if they're the only ones going through this or not.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's great that they do that, and I know we talked a little bit about before of just bringing that community together, and the other thing too is I think um, just a whole you touched on you pretty much hanging with the baseball players and kind of circling back real quick to networking. I talk about that like we do a monthly networking event. Actually, I have one today, uh, and I bring back the former guests. But what's cool about it is they're across different sports. So you've got your Major League Baseball players, former NFL players, Olympic swimmers, wrestlers, but it's the common theme that athlete, skill set, DNA, whatever you might say, but everybody has gone through it and from a young age all the way through, and they've got their skill in their particular sport. But it's cool to see them engaging with each other and opening up to like, hey, we've got this affinity relationship of we were all athletes, regardless of what the sport was. We went through all this, and how can we now work together as a team and help each other in our businesses?
you said that so poetically because um, there really hasn't been like a calming, I thought I was the only one going through it. I thought I was the only one
Right.
struggling to figure out what I want to do and how am I going to make it happen and how am I not going to blow through my money in a few years and all this stuff. And it took going to an alumni event like that to find out that everybody else here has the same doubts about themselves and they're going through the same struggles of knowing, how to apply the skills that they have. I included thought that my skills were physical. Um, but my ability to think my way through the game was one of my biggest skills that I ever had. And turning that approach towards career development after baseball, um, I thought it was irrelevant. And all of a sudden, one day, I'm like, the same tenacity and hunger that got me up to where I needed to get to is the same stuff that I can apply right now to get started in a job and do my best at it and continue to rise, no different than rising through baseball. So it took seeing other people struggle for me
Yeah.
to be like, it's okay for me to struggle too sometimes. And here are the things that are going to help you get through it. And the bottle and the pills and all that stuff. You hear the horror stories about people that get out of the game and they don't know what they're going to do and they just find depression and there's nothing for them to fall back onto from a support, a network. And then you hear the horror stories about, blowing through their money and drugs and abuse. And I knew that wasn't going to be me because I had such a good family and a network. But even beyond that, um, I didn't want that to be me. I was struggling,
Right.
but I was looking for a way to go up, not down.
Right. No, that's great. I mean, I think that is a big problem. I mean, the struggle and just how do you get through it? So maybe a couple of words of advice to other athletes as they, come up on the end of their career, whether it's college or a professional athlete like yourself.
Be honest and accountable with yourself. If you've made enough money that you're not going to have to do it, make sure your money is supported well. Make sure you have a good planner in place. Um, Ask questions, right? You don't know what you don't know. Find out. Ask if there's opportunity to advance in a marketing group in baseball or what a job at Major League Baseball looks like. Commissioner Manfred, obviously he's big news right now with his visits to the teams and stuff, but he's pretty approachable. And I went through a terrible injury, and obviously he's the lead negotiator on baseball. That's how he got the job as commissioner. Was he was the one that was beating us down for so many years in the CBA talks. So you want to be mad at that guy. You want to trash talk him. But the truth is, when I suffered my injury in 2015, um, he was on the phone with my wife, like him himself, assuring her that the resources and the support of Major League Baseball would be there for us and call with any questions. Here's my cell phone number. Like he actually did a really great thing there. So I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's easy to talk trash about commissioners in pro sports because they've suspended somebody, they fined somebody,
Right.
something has happened that doesn't look great, right? Um, but for Commissioner Manfred, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt because like he was there for me and my wife, and like I said, he's pretty approachable. So hey, Rob, I'm interested in what Major League Baseball jobs are open and stuff, and you start hearing about jobs in all the cities where teams are and stuff, and that wasn't an avenue for me. I wasn't prepared to move to New York. I wasn't prepared to move from Wichita to Kansas City to be their local rep. Um, and so I just would advise people to ask questions. Start to try
Right.
to figure out what it is that you want from life. And then you kind of just have to absorb as much knowledge as possible because these little details about some of these things might be very relevant when it comes time to retire and file the right paperwork and how do you pay for health insurance and all these things. I didn't know any of it, but I had to ask questions and I asked them way too late in my career.
Yeah. No, that's now that's the advice of these athletes as they're coming up on is just take a more proactive approach, I guess, when you're along the way in your career. So, what talk a little bit about what you're doing today?
So I hired on. I work for IMA Financial Group, and I sit in Wichita. IMA is a private commercial insurance brokerage. I know financials in the name, but they do a little bit of CFP. But we are a big insurance brokerage. What drew me to IMA was kind of the culture. It was a great opportunity to be in my town here and put down roots. It's a privately held company. It's all people pulling in the right direction because we're all employee owners. um, I just had to learn a lot, So early on, I wasn't doing a whole lot of selling or anything. I was just networking and taking class. And now I try to blend my two careers together. I go target sports and entertainment. I talk to professional franchises. I tell them, hey, I was a player. I know what's happening on your side of the table. And here are the things that I found on our side that actually might benefit you as an organization. And so I try to work in sports and entertainment, obviously, because that's the language that I grew up speaking. But you also have to learn about, liability and property coverage and all these different things in insurance or benefit plans that I just had no idea about, right? So now I'm kind of to the point in my career where if an ex-athlete starts a construction company, somebody that I know from back in the day, athletes want to work with athletes. And so I've had this synergy with people that start ventures after playing with their career earnings where I've been able to have some success writing insurance for these companies because they see another version of them sitting across the table. So we can go have lunch and talk about how they went 3 for 4 off of me one time. And then, we're also doing business together, right? So the more that I can blend my old career with my new career definitely brings a little bit of joy to me. And having been a Major League Baseball player, I'm number 20,610, I think is my number all time. And so that's a great conversation starter. And so you just kind of have to have stories and anecdotes and funny things that happen during your career. And it just starts these conversations where your personality kind of gets to come through a little bit. And then somebody's out there trying to hire you.
Yeah, that's the good moral of the story there. Again, with all athletes out there, is just parlay your career into the next, taking those next steps and utilizing the different skills that you have, and people are interested in that. So how can people find you?
Evan.Marshall at IMA Corp. I'm always open to just being a resource for players or people going through similar things. I have this what would be useless knowledge, these useless experiences when it comes to the real business world, but it absolutely applies when it comes to a professional athlete transitioning. And it doesn't just so much limit itself to just how to build a resume or anything. It's how to find balance between full engagement into this, trying to start another career, but also finding time for your family and finding time to get away and make yourself happy, and whatever that headspace you have to be in, because so many athletes get out, realize all they ever wanted to do was be an athlete, and then they start to drink or they start to have abuse problems. And I just knew that wasn't going to be me. And so I found a purpose. I found a job where I get to network and be face to face with people and use my development skills that way and feel like I'm helping them. We are a resource for companies to be able to protect your assets and close up exposures. And it feels great. It feels like winning a game when you win business because of the ability, your capabilities you showed a company that you can do. And so it's competitive. We cheer each other on. It's a little bit like being in a locker room in this group of business development people. And so that's been good for me too. There's levels of competition. You definitely want to keep competition in your life some way or another, because it's just kind of what fuels you. It's what drives you. I can get back into that mindset very quickly, about being competitive, especially when it comes to business. Whether it's how many calls you made today, or how many emails, or how many meetings you set, or lunches you set. You always try to keep a score.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you're on a new team. So, well, this has been great. We really appreciate the time. You can find us at alumnidirect.com. You can find the podcast on our YouTube channel, as well as across all the podcast networks, Spotify and Apple, and just encourage people. I talk about each episode. I kind of end up in saying we get great nuggets and advice from our guests like Evan today, and just, encourage people to watch it and listen to it, and really want to make an impact and help as many people as we can.
Yeah, what you're doing
Have a great.
isn't happening very much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get to share my story and what my transition has been like. There aren't enough good people like you doing this, Rob.
Well, thank you. It's been a true pleasure.